And now we have more screws to remove. This is a lot that you have to do to, to get to the hard drive. It's kind of nuts. Oh, don't tell me that's adhesive. It's completely silent. Oh my gosh, that is so weird. Sponsored by Linode, cloud computing from Akamai. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's episode, we're going to be taking another look at the Tangerine iBook G3 Clamshell that was recently sent to me by Victor. If you missed the initial video I did on this, you can check it out here, but basically what we did is we cleaned this thing up, we powered it on, and I determined that the CD drive in this thing is bad. It's not working at all. It doesn't even attempt to read any disk that you put inside of it. There was also a bit of a problem with the hard drive as well, at least initially, where it was not detecting that there was a drive installed in here. We got the blinking question mark icon when we were booting up Mac OS. But after a few power cycles, it was able to detect the drive just fine and it booted up into Mac OS 9. Now, a few people in the comments said that this could be because of stiction, which apparently was an issue with these particular drives, where, you know, they just needed to be kind of like when they were left off for a while, which this machine definitely was. It hadn't been powered on in a few years as far as I know. The drive just needed to be warmed up a bit before it started working again. So that very well could be the issue, because I ran a drive diagnostic utility and it came back and said there were no issues. But we're still going to be replacing the hard drive in this computer today. Yes, I'm going to go through the very tedious process of not only swapping out the disk drive, but also the hard drive with, you guessed it, a 64 gigabyte mSATA SSD. Okay, maybe you didn't guess 64 gigabyte, but you probably guessed SSD because I mentioned that I would potentially be doing this in the last video, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. I also grabbed this mSATA to 44-pin IDE adapter, so we could obviously plug it into here. And as for the disk drive, first off, I want to address something that a few people mentioned. A few people in the comments thought that the reason why this drive wasn't working was because I was using a CD-R that I had burned myself instead of a CD-ROM that like would have come from Apple, you know, with software on it from the factory that you could read from but not write to. And that has nothing to do with it. These drives, like most CD-ROM drives, can read CDRs just fine. I've done it before on my other iBook with no issues. But just for the heck of it, I tested this with a Mac OS 9 CD-ROM from Apple, and sure enough, it didn't read from it at all. It didn't detect it. Nothing happened. Because if you noticed in the last video, like I said, the drive isn't spinning up at all. It's not even attempting to read anything from the disk. There's just something wrong with the drive. So I needed to get a replacement, and as I mentioned in that video, I had trouble finding one because there's only one site that was selling them, and they wanted $69, which is nuts. I'm not going to pay that for a replacement disk drive for a computer from 1999. So then I just started searching around for any drive that I could put in here. And I found a couple, but the problem was, although the drive would fit in here just fine and plug into the logic board, the faceplate on it was not easily swappable with this one here. And I definitely want to keep the faceplate because that just completes the look on this side here. If this was missing, it would look really janky, right? Just having a, you know, disk drive in here with no faceplate on it. So I had reached a bit of an impasse, but then I came across a thread on the Apple Fritter forums where somebody said that apparently the disk drives from the old tray-loading iMac G3s, you can swap them into here, and the faceplates between the two drives are easily swappable. So we're going to put that to the test because I've got a logic board here from an original iMac G3 with the disk drive and hard drive and everything. This is the whole assembly. So we're going to take apart this, or not take apart the drive, but take the drive out of here, and we're going to see if these faceplates are indeed easily swappable. Let's go ahead and set the iBook aside for now because, well, we're going to start with this. I don't know why I brought it off camera because we're going to get started taking this apart. So let's do that. All right, so taking a closer look at this thing, in typical Apple fashion, it looks like we've got some Torx screw here. So let me grab my toolkit here and let's just start going through bits here and see. Okay, so that's probably... Oh, I think these screws are just stripped. These screws over here are just Phillips. These ones on the logic board here, yeah, those are just Phillips. So these were Phillips. I mean, they are Phillips, but they're just really stripped. So let me... Oh, God, that's Yep, they are Phillips. Sorry, Apple, for saying you were using Penelope or Torx screws in here. You hadn't started doing that yet, evidently, so we do appreciate that. But okay, so we'll set those aside. Luckily, those weren't stripped too badly, and I think that it's definitely loosened. I think we got it. There we go. You got to push it back like that, and then it pops out. So we'll just disconnect the cable here. And I believe this entire board here on the back is going to have to come disconnected because I think that just plugs directly into this port here to then plug into the logic board on the iBook. But we're not entirely done yet because there is this kind of drive cage sort of thing going on around here. We got these tiny little screws there. They are Phillips, luckily, so let me grab, not that it would matter because I've got, you know, a huge toolkit here with a bunch of different types of of, you know, screw bits. So that should, yep, there we go. Perfect. So we'll save getting the faceplate off for later. I'm just going to set this entire thing aside for now because this was the easiest part of this whole thing. I think what I'm going to do here is start with the disk drive first and swap that out, and then, you know, before we even start anything with the hard drive, power on the computer and see if this thing is recognized and see if it works. Because you don't have to take apart and like separate the computer to swap out the disk drive, or as you do with the hard drive. So yeah, let's go ahead and first thing, take out the battery. That's obviously pretty important. So we'll get our lovely tool here to get those off. We'll take this out, and out comes the battery. And next we got to take out the airport card, which we don't have an airport card in here, so we're already ahead of the game. But we do need to get under here anyways. So we'll take this out, or flip it over rather. And we got to take apart these two screws here. We already did this in the previous video, just to see if this drive was connected, which, you know, it was obviously. And then we pull this back, and this piece should come up like that. And now we need to pull up the keyboard connector by just pulling up on this here. There we go. So the keyboard has been separated. And now we need to eject the CD-ROM because there is a screw in here. So let me just do that. There we go. And we close this up, we flip it back over, and there should be, yep, you see right here, there's a screw that they conveniently kind of hide in there. And there are two sets of Torque 8 screws. So let me go back to the driver set here, and let's find T8, which I believe is this one. And there's 4 short ones and 2 long ones up here. And there is a Phillips screw right in here. Now I believe we can push this back in. The guy doesn't say that specifically, but we do need to flip this back over, open it up once more, and now there's some more screws we got to get to in here. We've got these 3 Phillips screws right where the keyboard was. And now we have to disconnect the trackpad ribbon cable, which is this cable right here. We got to pull up, this is one of these connectors where it's like you got to pull up on, it's like just the ribbon, you know, and there's this kind of really tiny piece here you got to pull up on, and then the connector just kind of comes out. And now we can start pulling up on the case plastic here. There we go. We need to make sure to disconnect this audio cable right here, this tiny little cable. All right, and with that, the plastic piece here should carefully separate. You want to be very careful not to break anything, but apparently these tabs here are pretty strong. There we go. That is the top casing. And now we've got a lot more room to work with. So first thing we got to do is remove this standoff right here. And now we can once again disconnect the cable from the logic board. There we go. It drives out. So let's close up the iBook, at least partially, and we'll set this, we'll just push it back here. And we'll turn our, I'm actually curious to see if these drives are exactly like the same part number or if they are slightly different. We do need to get this bracket here off, so we'll start doing that. I think that is everything for the top bracket here, maybe not. Oh, don't tell me that's adhesive. Don't even tell me. That is adhesive. Are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding me. They have adhesive under. That's so freaking annoying. That is so annoying. Like, really, Apple? Like, you really had to glue this on here? Like, okay. Well, there we go. So, we'll set this aside here. Here is our frame, which I guess I'm just going to have to leave this here. Getting this off is going to be kind of a pain. We could do it, but yeah, we'll just set this aside for now. Though we don't even really necessarily, well, I mean, yeah, we would want to use this because this would properly mount it, you know, into the iBook. But, so here is the drive. Now, I can already tell they are different because there's no label on the top here. This also feels much heavier than this too. Yeah, this is a metal. That makes sense. They use kind of, this is like a plastic frame here. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, these are made of different materials. So what we probably should do is take off, you know, this casing here, because this is going to make it a lot heavier, because this is a pretty hefty drive here. But they do look like on the bottom here, you see they're the same shape and everything. So, you know, I think that these could be the same drive. They're just encased in different, you know, housings. But before we do anything else, I do want to take off the plates here. Oh, there's a little tab here. Okay. So you got kind of, there we go. Lovely. I think that looks exactly the same. That's the same tab right there. So we should just be able to push in. That will work. Check that out. All right, so the faceplates are easily swappable. And yeah, this back board is going to have to come off because it's not going to be used at all. And we'll just slowly separate this here. And that should allow that to come off. And then we just got to take the bottom off somehow. This should come apart. Oh, I think it's... Nope. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to transfer like all of this. I'm kind of wondering if I should just leave the... I mean, it's gonna increase the weight just putting it back in. And speaking of weight, can you believe you had to wait this long for me to tell you about today's video sponsor, Linode? Well, don't worry, because with Linode, you don't have to do much waiting at all. They've got the tools you need to scale and deploy whatever application you're working on. If you want to host a game server, a website, or even a content management system, their Linux-based virtual machines have you covered. And they come equipped with enterprise-level capabilities and predictable, no lock-in pricing, beginning at just $5 per month. And with the wide selection of apps available in their marketplace, it's incredibly easy to get a new server up and running in just a few clicks. Linode was acquired by Akamai a little while ago, and they're already expanding their global network of data centers to accommodate more customers in more places. And you can test drive all of it just by heading over to linode.com/michaelmjd and signing up for an account. And as a thank you for watching this video, you'll receive a $100 free credit that you can spend on any of their cloud computing services for 60 days. So be sure to check them out, and huge thanks again to Linode for making this video possible. Alright, so here's the current predicament. So we can't, even if I wanted to use this existing housing, we can't just pop this into the iBook because the adapter on the back, you know, it has to be like this here. So these are the same port, right? But this one has a cable coming out of it that kind of runs along the back here. And then this is what actually plugs into the logic board. So we can't just plug this directly or put this in here because there's no way for us to plug it into the logic board. So I need to like transfer the internals of this one over to here. The problem with that is getting this casing off. There are these two screws here, but you know, this cable here kind of runs on top here. I think this can just be kind of peeled back a little bit. It's slowly coming up. Okay, so we got that peeled back. This should now... Oh, there's one more screw here. Get that off. There we go. So now, theoretically, all we have to do is swap the internals of these, if I can get them both in frame here, swap the internals of these out. Oh boy, it's time for a jump cut. So, yeah, a few things happened since the last clip. The main thing is I kind of screwed up when I was doing this. So, just to kind of walk you through what I had to do here. So, our goal was to transplant this here. This is the old drive that was, originally in the iBook. We had to take this out of the iMac's drive and try to transplant it into the housing here for the iBook. And you see I was able to get the iBook one out just fine, from its original housing here. And I was able to get the iMac one out as well. The problem is when I tried to put that drive into this housing, well, I kind of screwed up, as you can see. So basically what happened is when I was putting this part from this drive into this housing here, when I put everything in and I closed the drive and tried to open it, some of the adhesive got stuck on the top, and when I pulled it out, it started to tear here. And if I open this up here, you can see that, yeah, this is what happened here, which is not great. I ended up just putting the drive from the iMac back in its original housing here. It's not like we can really use this for anything anymore because, well, I mean, the only thing I could do is get a new cable here. And these cables, by the way, are not the same. So I can't just take this cable and use it with this drive. They're not the same. So moral of the story is, if you're going to put an iMac G3's disk drive into an iBook G3, it's going to be probably easier for you to just take this cable here that is mounted on top of the drive to where you don't have to take anything apart, take this off and then re-adhere it to the back here, because this is the cable that plugs into the drive, and then this then plugs into the logic board on the laptop. So this is going to be much easier to do than just taking this whole thing apart like I was trying to do. It's not impossible. I'm sure somebody could do this, and perhaps somebody has already done it. But the good thing is, even though this is all just a bunch of sacrificed computer parts now, I was able to find an eBay listing of 4 iBook G3 Clamshell CD drives, so I went ahead and purchased them. Now, the listing did not specifically say that these drives were bad, it just said that the seller wasn't able to test them. So I'm hoping that out of these 4, at least one of them works, and this will be much easier to swap in here than trying to deal with that whole thing that I was doing. So, let's go ahead and open this up. I wonder if there's any discs inside of these. We'll have to definitely check that. So yeah, it looks like this one has a QC stamp on it, May of 2000, it looks like. And yeah, these also have the, top piece here, again, that we took off from the original drive. And they got the cable and everything, so it's just swap it right in and power it up and see if it works. So it looks like this one was May of 2000, this one is January of 2000. This one here is December of 1999, and this one is also December of 1999. So, let's go ahead and let me just use this part that I took out of the old drive here to eject these, because I'm actually curious to see if there's anything in here. So we got nothing in that one, nothing in that one. Oh, look at that! We've got Clifford's Learning Activities. Is there a date on this? 2001 Scholastic. Wow, okay, so we got some free software. And let's see, what do we got in here? See if we got some rare Apple software, maybe? Maybe? No, we got nothing. Alright, so let's see here. I think I'm just going to start with the one from May of 2000. That's the newest part here. Not that it really matters when the thing was manufactured, it matters how often that it was used. Of course, we have no way of knowing that as of now. So we're going to just plug this into here. Oh, you know what? First thing, I should probably make sure that that the outer piece here is going to be able to go on, which I'm sure it will. There we go. I think we'll just leave it like this, actually. We'll just kind of leave it popping out of the case. And I'm actually not going to bother with the keyboard as of now, because we don't really need it for anything. Though I do have a USB mouse on standby in case we need to, boot in and try to browse stuff on the disk, which, well, we're probably going to do that to make sure it actually works. So we'll plug this into power here. So the speaker's been removed, so we're not going to hear the startup chime. But let's eject this here. So it pops out. Okay, that's good. And we'll put in this Clifford disk and shut it up. Alright, it's spinning. That's a great sign. And there it is, Clifford learning. I don't think you can see that super well. Let me move it over there so you can get a much better view of it. Let me try to grab a Mac OS 9 setup disk. Look at that. First one I grabbed off the shelf. Isn't that great? So let's eject this. And in goes the Mac OS 9 setup disk. And yeah, we can launch the setup program just fine, so that's great. So yeah, we've got a working drive. First try. That's awesome. Though I think what I'm going to do, since we've got this thing taken apart, I'm going to use this opportunity to test these 3 other drives, and we'll see if they work, and I hope that they do, because if they do, then that means I've got 3 parts CD-ROM drives for these iBook clamshells. So let me go ahead and quickly do that here. Alright, awesome news. These other 3 drives work just fine. So that's pretty awesome. I was able to get 4 clamshell iBook CD drives. I think I paid like $35 for all of these, which I will gladly take any day over the $69 that one site was offering for one, which is still nuts. But anyways, so now we can continue, because, you know, we have to have this drive out anyway as we go further to swap out the hard drive here. So next up, we need to turn our attention, it looks like, to the modem area, which is going to be under this shielding here. So it looks like right here is the longest of the screws, and then there's 3 short ones here, here, and here. And then there's this one, which secures this piece here. And this does have adhesive on it, so we gotta like peel it back. This is a lot that you have to do to get to the hard drive. It's kind of nuts. And then we just need to disconnect this cable. Now is where the hinge starts to come into play, where we actually separate the screen here from the bottom portion. So it looks like we've got this screw here to remove, which we might need to get our larger screwdriver for. Please don't fall on the floor. Thank you. So we'll start with this one here. And now we got to disconnect this cable right here. This is the display cable. Now we turn to the right side here, and we got to disconnect. This is the backlight cable. And now there's 3 screws here that we got to remove. And now comes the moment where we separate the top from the bottom. So I got to hold this with my left hand, unscrew this, and this will separate these 2 pieces. And oh, we just got to pull back like that. Okay. Oh, and here's the airport cable. There's this piece of tape here that I got to undo, and then that should come up. Yep. There's the screen. So we'll set the screen over here for now. And now we can turn our attention to this area. Though we can't get to the hard drive just yet, we got to remove a few other things. So there's 2 screws up here that go over this board. This is the RJ11 connector, actually. And it's got this tape here. I'm actually just going to kind of push it to the side here and just leave it there, because I don't think we need it. It says to remove it, but I don't think we need to completely remove it. We do have to deroute this speaker cable, though, which does have tape here that we'll go ahead and peel back. And now we have more screws to remove, including one all the way over here. Hey, look at that. Isn't that lovely? You can just route this cable through there. And there we go. Our cage here is finally removed, and now we got access to the hard drive. Let me see if there's anything else that has to be done. We do have to remove, of course, a few screws here. Oh, they're all standoffs. Okay, that makes sense. Now we got to pull up on this cable here. All right, it took a little finagling, but we got it out. So now we can finally set this board aside, and we can turn our attention to the drive itself. So we're just going to remove this drive from its bracket here, and then we're going to disconnect this cable. And so this is again a did I actually take a look at the drive capacity in the last video? I don't know, but this is a 6 GB drive, and it is the original one. It's got the Apple logo. This is a Toshiba drive, and yeah, so still works, nothing wrong with it. We'll set it aside and, you know, probably use it in something else. But yeah, we're gonna get this here. This is our enclosure and adapter, and we're just going to hook this up to it. And there we go. We've got the drive encased in its enclosure. We just have to screw it together, and we'll be good to go. Now, one thing that I was originally going to do is I was going to try to see if we could leave this enclosure off and just have it to where you could swap out the SSD just from taking the keyboard off, and then you could just get access to this here. But to do that, we would have to literally cut out this part of the enclosure here to, make it to where there's a hole here. And I don't really want to do that. I mean, it's definitely something that we could do, and it would be much nicer to not have to take this entire thing apart again to swap out the hard drive. But, I don't really want to damage this. And it's not like, I mean, at least in theory, we won't have to take this apart again. I hope this works. I don't think I'm going to put the entire computer together until we know for sure. And I think now would be a great time for a time lapse. Huh, you see what I did there? Alright, so we've got this thing partially reassembled. I wanted to stop here for a moment and try to boot off of a Mac OS 9 install CD and just make sure it can recognize the hard drive without any issues. So I'm going to go ahead and put that disk into the drive. And again, we don't have the keyboard, at least the internal keyboard hooked up. But I will use a USB one if we need it. So because there's nothing on the hard drive, it should just attempt to boot off the disk immediately. And yep, that's what it looks like it's doing. Alright, so we got a warning about functionality of USB devices. The keyboard and mouse work, so that's all I really care about at this point. And let's run the installer here. I wonder if there's anything under utilities. Well, let's see if it detects the destination disk. So we'll hit continue. Valid destination can't be found. Okay, so can we go to options? I don't know if that will do anything. No. So, yeah, of course, there's no, like, partition or anything on this disk. So I wonder if we have to go into utilities here. Drive setup. There we go. Not initialized. So we're going to select this. And we'll initialize it. Initializing will destroy any data on the following volumes. It shows nothing there. I mean, there's no volumes on the disk, so yeah, let's hit initialize. And there we go, untitled. 61,040 megabytes, that sounds about right. And you know what, since we're here, I mean, I was gonna wait to do the installation until we reassembled everything, but why don't we just do it now? I mean, we're here, it makes sense. I am gonna select perform clean installation just to make sure it does that. And we'll hit select, and continue, agree, yes, and let's start. And just like that, we're done. So we've got our new volume here, of course, with everything in it, so that's good. And I'm going to go ahead and change the volume name now from Untitled to just Macintosh HD. And let's go ahead and restart. This thing's gonna be like silent. I just realized that. I'm so used to hearing the hard drive spin up. That's really bizarre. Oh my gosh. So make sure it actually starts up first. Yep, there we go. Oh my gosh, that is so weird. It's completely silent. Because of course, there's no fans in this thing. It is dead silent. I mean, literally the only noise you're gonna hear are, well, obviously the speakers, but also whenever you have a disc in the CD drive. That's the only noise this thing's gonna make. Holy cow. I don't know why, I just realized that, yeah, it's gonna be silent. It's like, all right, so let's shut it down, and we'll continue reassembling it. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my gosh. It just feels great to get this back together, that's for sure. So yeah, let's go ahead and, well, we can power it up because we know the battery actually has a charge, which is lovely. And gosh, I still can't get over how silent it is. It's nuts. And let's make sure the trackpad and keyboard here work. So yep, the trackpad's working. Yep. The keyboard is working, which is lovely. So this this is a successful repair and upgrade, guys. I mean, I am really, really happy with this. We've got a silent iBook now, completely dead silent, of course, with the exception of whenever you have a disc in here. And yeah, this is just super awesome. I might have to do this with my other clamshell, because honestly, like, it wasn't as tedious as I thought. I mean, it kind of looked like it would be really tedious, and I mean, it's certainly more involving than swapping out a hard drive on like the Dell Latitude D610, for example. I mean, that's like literally one screw or one or two screws you take out, and you have the hard drive in hand. You can swap it really easily. So, you know, it's definitely more involving, but it's not as difficult as I thought it was going to be, and yeah, I'm just really happy with this. So huge thank you again to Victor for donating this machine to the channel. I'm really excited to potentially do some more videos with this thing. I mean, we've got a pretty awesome Mac OS 9 system here that we can mess around with stuff on if we ever got to do an old Mac OS 9 focus video. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed, all that good stuff. And as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.